You know that feeling, right? The moment your alarm goes off, maybe you reach for your phone, snooze it, then maybe just a quick glance at notifications, a scroll through headlines, and, well, before you know it, screens are just there. From the first light of morning until we finally hit the pillow, they're kind of everywhere. And it's not just us, is it? It's the tiny humans in our lives, too. This isn't just about, kids glued to tablets all the time. It's really about all of us, toddlers, grandparents, everyone, just navigating this constant digital hum.
It is quite fascinating, actually, how technology has woven itself into the fabric of our daily lives. And the speed is just unprecedented. We've really witnessed a dramatic shift. I mean, children engaging with media devices as early as 4 months old now. Compare that to just a few decades ago, it was typically closer to 4 years old. A huge difference. And while this digital revolution has, undeniably transformed how we learn, communicate, access info, it's also, without a doubt, brought some pretty profound public health questions right to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. So today, we're taking a deep dive into something incredibly relevant to pretty much everyone listening, how we can cultivate healthy digital habits for kids and adults, being intentional with tech use. Our mission isn't just to lay out, the known impacts of screen time, the physical, mental, social stuff, but maybe more importantly, to arm you with truly practical, insightful ways to be more intentional, more mindful, and ultimately more in control of your tech rather than, the other way around. Let's unpack this. It's so easy to fall into this trap, isn't it? This idea that technology is either entirely good, the silver bullet for learning and connection, or it's entirely evil, the root of all our modern problems. We get bombarded with these dire warnings or maybe glowing endorsements, and it creates this kind of black and white thinking. But when we really dig into the research, it paints such a much more nuanced picture. Let's maybe start with what the studies actually show about its effects on children, because that's often where our biggest concerns are, right? And our strongest emotional reactions lie.
You've hit on a critical point there. When we examine the effects on child development, we truly see a whole spectrum of impacts, not just one thing. Take cognitive development, for instance. On one hand, studies definitely show that screens can enhance education. Think about interactive electronic books or, those well-designed reading apps. They can significantly improve early literacy creative thinking skills. But, and here's where it gets really interesting, on the flip side, excessive screen time, especially when you combine it with media multitasking like texting while watching something that's been consistently linked to poor executive functioning.
Right, executive functioning. And for those who might not know, that sounds kind of fancy, but it's really about the brain's control center, isn't it? Like the air traffic controller for your thoughts and actions.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. It covers crucial skills like working memory. That ability to hold information in your mind to finish a task, and the capacity to switch tasks efficiently or to focus and ignore distractions. The how here is really vital. Those constant notifications, the rapid shifts in content, the sheer volume of information. It can almost train the brain for a more shallow, fragmented kind of attention. It makes sustained, deep focus really difficult because the brain gets accustomed to novelty and that instant gratification buzz. One study, for example, found that every single 1 hour increase in TV exposure at age 2 corresponded to a 7% decrease in classroom participation and a 6% decrease in math proficiency by the time they reached 4th grade.
Wow. That's not a small impact.
Not at all.
It suggests a pretty direct connection between those really early screen habits and real-world academic performance years down the line. It really makes you pause, doesn't it? And reconsider what might seem like just innocent background noise or, just a moment of quiet time for a parent. And I imagine that leads us directly into language development. That seems like an incredibly sensitive area for young children.
It absolutely is. Language development is particularly vulnerable because, screens can inadvertently reduce the quantity and, critically, the quality of interactions between children and their caregivers. Think about it. When a child is engrossed in a screen, or maybe when the parent is, there's simply fewer opportunities for that crucial back and forth talk, fewer chances for language practice, for narrating the world around them, or just responding to babbles and early words. We've seen research indicating that even just background television, not even direct viewing, can have adverse effects on language usage and overall cognition in kids under 5. They're simply hearing less direct, responsive human speech. However, and this is important, the context is absolutely key here. Co-viewing with a parent where the adult is actively engaging with the child about what they're seeing, asking questions, expanding on ideas that can actually show a positive correlation with expressive language abilities.
Oh.
So it really emphasizes that it's about how and what they watch, not just simply how much. That interactive element with a caregiver, that seems paramount.
That's a really powerful distinction. So it's not just the device itself, but how it's integrated, how it's used within the child's environment and their relationships. That must be a huge factor for social emotional development too, then, because that's all about how we learn to interact with the world and people around us.
Precisely. And in social emotional development, yeah, we observe some of the most significant impacts. Beyond the direct cognitive and language effects we talked about, excessive screen usage has been linked to an increased likelihood of obesity, sleep disorders, and quite concerningly, mental health conditions like depression and anxiety, even in young children. Some studies indicate that increased TV exposure between 6 and 18 months of age can be associated with emotional reactivity and aggression later on. And consider this, having a TV in a child's bedroom at age 6 actually predicted lower levels of emotional understanding by age 8.
Wow.
It suggests that the sheer presence of screens might be displacing opportunities for practicing emotional regulation or for engaging in that complex social play that's so needed to develop empathy and understanding.
That's a pretty stark picture. But
Wow.
you mentioned a spectrum earlier. So are there positive sides to this for social emotional growth as well? It can't all be bad, surely.
Absolutely. And it's crucial we remember that. It's definitely not all negative.
Mhm.
High-quality educational programs, especially designed for children aged 2 and older, they can genuinely support cognitive development. They can promote positive racial attitudes, maybe through diverse characters and storylines, and encourage imaginative play. Think of programs really designed to spark curiosity or teach problem solving. This is where that nuanced question arises, though, for parents and really for all of us. How can we discern the helpful, the enriching stuff from the potentially harmful distractions? How do we become, discerning curators of our children's digital diet?
Right. Okay, so we've unpacked quite a lot about the developing brain, but what does this all mean for us, the adults? While we might not be grappling with early language development or, foundational educational apps in the same way our kids are, we adults face our own unique and pretty significant set of screen time challenges. Sometimes I think we forget we're subject to the exact same dynamics.
You're absolutely right. We often focus on the kids, but we're in it too. The physical discomfort, for example, that's immediate and widely reported. The pervasive eye strain, dry eyes, headaches, blurred vision, and of course the ever-present neck and back pain from prolonged device use. We call it tech neck for a reason. Beyond that, the blue light emitted from screens is a significant physiological disruptor. It essentially tricks our brains into thinking it's still daytime. It does this primarily by suppressing the production of melatonin, which is the hormone crucial for signaling to our bodies that it's time to sleep. This directly disrupts our natural circadian rhythm, which then impacts productivity, alertness, and actually over the long term, even increases the risk of conditions like heart disease and diabetes. It's kind of a cascading effect, all stemming from that seemingly innocuous glow.
Yeah, that blue light thing is huge. And then there's the mental and emotional toll, isn't there? Especially when it comes to social media. It often feels like a constant performance or this endless, exhausting cycle of comparison.
It really can be exhausting. And it brings up an important question. What happens when our digital habits, particularly our phone use, spill over into our most intimate connections, our personal relationships? We definitely see increased stress and anxiety, maybe from the pressure to maintain some kind of online image or just the constant barrage of notifications demanding attention. But specifically for relationships, there's a relatively new term that's emerged, phubbing.
Phubbing.
Yeah, Phubbing. It's a combination of phone and snubbing.
Oh.
When partners are engrossed in their devices during shared time, maybe just sitting next to each other on the couch, it creates this emotional distance. This often leads to feelings of being ignored, undervalued, and even profound loneliness for the partner who's being phubbed. Plus, social media can introduce really unrealistic expectations about relationships, fostering insecurity or jealousy as we compare our, messy behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's curated highlight reels.
Yeah, the highlight reel effect. So, phubbing, it can really erode the foundation of connection. But surely it's not all negative for relationships either, right? There must be ways technology can actually bring people closer sometimes.
Precisely. And it's crucial to underscore that. It's definitely not all bad. Digital tools can be incredibly powerful for helping couples stay connected and share experiences, especially when they're physically apart. Think of video calls with loved ones who live far away, or sharing photos, funny memes that reinforce inside jokes, even just coordinating busy schedules. These interactions, when they're intentional, can absolutely reinforce bonds and strengthen relationships. It all circles back to that core idea, really. It's truly about intentional use.
Intentional use, that seems to be the key phrase here. We're not here to demonize technology or suggest we all, chuck our smartphones in the bin. This deep dive isn't about disconnecting entirely. That's probably unrealistic for most of us anyway. It's more about transforming our relationship with technology. It's about being profoundly intentional.
That's the absolute core of it. One incredibly powerful approach, particularly for families, is to think about developing what some people call a family technology plan.
Mm.
The fundamental idea behind this isn't necessarily to create super rigid rules, but rather to recognize that technology, at its heart, is a tool. And like any tool, right, it can be used for good, for neutral purposes, or sometimes for detrimental ones. So it's immensely helpful to proactively sit down and identify how your family will use technology in ways that are good or morally neutral, meaning they support well-being, learning, connection, and how to create safeguards against those evil or harmful uses, like, say, excessive passive consumption or exposure to inappropriate content. It provides a shared framework for proactive management, for conversation, rather than just reactive arguments when something goes wrong.
I really like that framework. Good, neutral, or evil. It kind of reframes the whole discussion from just how much time to how are we using this time and why. So, okay, how do we actually do this for ourselves and for our kids? Where do we even begin to implement this kind of intentionality?
Well, it genuinely starts with self-reflection, that internal check-in.
Right.
Before you even pick up your device, try to cultivate that brief pause. Ask yourself, okay, what do I actually need to use this for right now? Is this how I truly want to spend my time in this moment?
Mhm.
And importantly, maybe ask, how do I feel afterward? Energized, informed, or just drained and distracted? This simple pause, just this moment of mindfulness, it can profoundly reshape your whole digital interaction.
That's a fantastic, really immediate practical step. It turns what's often a mindless reflex into a conscious choice. And if we can master that pause, what are some more concrete individual strategies? Because let's be honest, sometimes it feels like the phone practically has a gravitational pull, especially after a long day.
Oh, absolutely. And that pull is largely by design, remember. For individual strategies, think about creating intentional phone-free times and zones. This could be as simple as making dinner time a strict no-phone zone for everyone at the table, or maybe designating your bedroom as a true rest nest, a sanctuary completely free from screens. You might even consider switching back to an old-school alarm clock. Remember those. Just to avoid bringing your phone into bed altogether, given that blue light impact on sleep we talked about. Engaging in genuinely offline activities helps too. Reading a physical book, cooking a new recipe without looking at a screen, spending dedicated time outdoors, these can be incredibly restorative and help reset your digital default. And for those feeling truly overwhelmed, sometimes a digital detox can be powerful, even a short one. Start by setting clear, achievable goals, like maybe stopping all screen use an hour before bed. Other practical things. Turn off non-essential notifications seriously. Most of them aren't urgent. Remove those really addictive apps from your home screen so they're not the first thing you see. Or even try that 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes you're on a screen, take a 20-second break, look at something at least 20 feet away. It's about building small, sustainable habits.
Those are really tangible steps for adults. Good reminders. But then, yeah, we introduce children into the mix, and it feels like the stakes get even higher with their developing brains. It's one thing to manage my own habits, maybe, but how do we approach this as a family unit?
You're right. The stakes do feel higher, and parents play an absolutely crucial role here. Not just in setting rules, but maybe even more fundamentally, in role modeling. There's clear research showing a link. If parents spend more than, say, 4 hours a day watching TV, their children are significantly more likely to develop similar habits. Kids watch what we do. So setting consistent limits is essential, and communicating them really clearly. For instance, general guidelines suggest for children aged 3 to 7, discretionary screen time limits are ideally around half an hour to 1 hour per day. For 7-12-year-olds, maybe around 1 hour. And for 12-15-year-old, perhaps up to 1.5 hours. These are just guides, of course. Establish clear screen-free zones, like bedrooms and dining tables. That helps create boundaries. And many families also benefit immensely from having a formal, written-down cell phone agreement. It outlines expectations around things like passwords, and yes, parents probably should have them, adjusting access as the child matures, what content is appropriate, and crucial safety rules like absolutely no texting while driving.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that emphasis on communication over just rigid rules. It feels like it transforms it from a potential battleground into more of a conversation about shared values and healthy habits. How do we foster that kind of open communication, though, especially as kids get older and their online lives become inevitably more complex.
Yeah, open communication is absolutely paramount. You need to regularly check in with your kids about their online experiences, not in an interrogating way, but just casually. Ask them what they're enjoying, what they're seeing online, and just as importantly, really foster an environment where they feel completely comfortable discussing anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, confused, or even scared. That trust is your best tool, honestly. And don't forget the power of consistent family screen-free time, even just 30 minutes every evening dedicated to conversation. Playing a board game, reading together, or some other shared activity can significantly improve family interaction and connection. It's about intentionally creating an alternative reality where connection isn't always mediated by a screen.
That's a great point, creating that alternative. And speaking of transformation, it's not just about limiting and restricting, is it? It's also about optimizing. How can we leverage tech for good, for all its inherent potential? Because let's face it, it's not going away.
Exactly. This is where we connect this back to the bigger picture and the real power of intentionality. Digital engagement, believe it or not, is actually, as one researcher put it, exquisitely aligned with the biology of the teen brain. It satisfies those deep evolutionary drives teenagers have for social connection, for exploration, for seeking information. Take video games, for example. They often get demonized, right? But studies have shown they can actually increase gray matter in parts of the brain related to executive control and strategic planning. And during really challenging times, like the recent pandemic, for many young people, video games provided invaluable stress relief, a sense of control when things felt chaotic, and a really crucial way to maintain social connections when physical ones were impossible.
That's a really powerful reframe for something many parents, myself included, sometimes struggle with. And what about social media? We've talked quite a bit about its downsides, but are there genuine upsides there for connection and well-being too?
Absolutely. When it's used intentionally, social media, despite all its documented downsides, can genuinely enhance social connections. It can foster empathy by exposing us to diverse perspectives we might not otherwise encounter, and it can even contribute positively to psychological well-being. This seems particularly true for individuals who might struggle with in-person interactions. Social media can allow them to find communities of belonging and support. It's really about leveraging technology's inherent ability to facilitate positive development, creativity, and deeper connection, rather than just allowing it to become a source of anxiety, comparison, or mindless distraction. The power really is in our hands to choose how we engage.
Wow. That truly was an insightful deep dive. From, the developing brain of a child navigating early language and emotional regulation, all the way to the stressed out adult grappling with eye strain and the complexities of online social relationships. It's abundantly clear that our relationship with technology is complex. But importantly, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be something we feel is just happening to us out of our control.
Indeed. And it really invites us to consider a vital question, doesn't it? How can we consciously shift from merely consuming technology, often quite passively, to truly curating it? Actively shaping and selecting our digital experiences for our own well-being and the well-being of those we care about. It's about recognizing that our digital habits are, in many ways, a direct reflection of our deeper priorities and values. What do we choose to give our attention to?
Yeah, that's powerful. Ultimately, it seems it's not about disconnecting entirely from this incredibly powerful tool, because that's probably not feasible or even desirable for many. But it's about connecting more deeply with ourselves, with the people right there with us in our physical lives, and with our core goals and values, all by being profoundly mindful, profoundly intentional about how we invite technology into our lives. So maybe the question to leave you with this week is this. What's one small intentional change you can make to your digital habits starting today? Maybe that could create a ripple effect of positive health, psychological, or relational benefits for you or for your family. How can you begin to turn what might sometimes feel like a digital battleground into a more intentional, maybe even playful, and certainly more beneficial part of your life?